find it very difficult. I mean, I was thinking, how shall I describe Harry? There's no simple word. She's just Harry.
Hello, you've reached the voicemail of Harinder Veriah. I will be away from the office from 22nd of December to the 29th. I'll be back on the 30th. If you leave me a message, I'll call you on my return.
Well, thinking back, I'm amazed that by the time she died, she was just in her early 30s. The amount of things she'd done, the maturity that she, so to speak, radiated. She seemed older, although at the same time it's patent that she was a young woman, a very good-looking young woman, small, slim, enormously intelligent.
It always amazed me that she knew so much of the world and that she had such maturity in spite of being so little and sparkling and beautiful.
Because I think one did feel her delicacy, her almost physical vulnerability. That combined with this inner strength and inner confidence, it was a very striking and sort of distinctive combination of qualities.
I was increasingly impressed by the fact of, you might say, who she was, where she'd come from. It's after all not every young woman who makes her way from Malaysia right into a leading firm of lawyers in London, and who does it against a lot of handicaps. That was a remarkable achievement.
Harry was born in Petaling Jaya. She had a tough childhood. She lost her mother when she was 6, and her father, Karam Singh, spent 4 years in detention. Money was always scarce.
This place belongs to my uncle. He allowed us to stay here for some time. That's because my dad was detained under the ISA. 4 years later, my father was released from detention. So we had just 2 years of the full family being together. After that, my mother passed away, and then we left this place. So we had very difficult times meeting ends meet.
She was responsible for going home, preparing the meals, making an effort to earn some money. She was only about 15 at the time. She never ever gave us any indication as to what she was going through.
The neighborhood basically is Chinese. That's where Harry and all of us, me and my sister, we picked up our Chinese. We always felt very proud that our dad was a lawyer. But whenever there were always those who asked, how come your dad is a lawyer and yet you are so poor? So that was a bit difficult to answer.
Harry went to Assunta Secondary School and then did a London University external degree in law in her spare time while working to support herself.
I noticed in her a dignity which was beyond her years, I think. She was in her 20s when I met her. She was very excited at the nuances of thought, how law can develop. She did not join the rat race, take up the pursuit for the first million or what is quite common in the legal fraternity.
She qualified as a lawyer and practiced commercial law for 3 years in Kuala Lumpur. In August 1993, Harry went with her law firm to Tioman Island. She met Martin, an English writer and broadcaster, on a jungle trek. They fell in love within just a few minutes of meeting. It was the beginning of a most extraordinary and beautiful relationship.
I think they met somewhere in between. I think Martin has an incredible vigor and youth to him, and Harry had an incredible wisdom. So I think they met in between, somewhere in between. I think essentially it was, you know, this old soul quality to her that made their relationship so important as well.
Overcoming the most formidable of obstacles, they decided to spend their lives together. Until she met Martin, she had never travelled outside Malaysia and Singapore. In August 1994, Harry went to live in London. She became a student.
Until she got to London and actually did her LLM, she had no full-time higher education at all. She was doing it the hard way. But she was willing to tackle everything, and to tackle everything at the same time.
She was not English, decidedly not English, very different from being English in every way. And yet she moved with tremendous confidence into Britain and into the commercial world, into the legal world, with enormous aplomb and confidence, and kind of took it by storm.
Harry set her mind on working for an international law firm. It was not easy. Their culture was largely private school, Oxbridge and White. Not exactly Harry. But when, after months of trying, she finally got her first interview, she was unstoppable.
It was very interesting because her CV didn't sort of jump out at you in terms of it being a natural fit with our practice and what we're trying to do.
And as a consequence, I think what we were looking at that stage was very much her as a person rather than the form which we normally go through and tick boxes on.
As the interview developed, there was a story there that was most unusual.
And I think the intangibles were, well, how did you get through this process and how did you come to be here in England, and, you know, why are you on this path? The only issue is the obvious one professionally, which is you've been practicing the law in Malaysia, how well and how quickly will you come to practice it well in England? Clearly there were professional differences between what she'd seen in Malaysia and what she was doing here, but did they faze her? Not in the slightest.
There were some linguistic quirks that needed to be ironed out, which we worked on together, which is fine, because she was very keen to improve and clever and developing all the time as a lawyer.
She tended to connect with her colleagues very much on certainly a different sort of relationship to the one traditionally people would come into the firm and experience, but also I think there must have been something about her which regarded colleagues as being friends, and that was the way to actually work with them.
I suppose I was captivated by her. Those beautiful eyes. Of course, one's not supposed to be influenced by things like that in interviews, but there we are, we're all human. Just a package of personality assets that made a very interesting, slightly complex whole.
She was extremely delighted that she was working at Lovell. She was really happy there. She loved her work, she loved the people she was working with, and of course she loved being in London because she was with everyone that she loved.
The fact that even within a week of meeting Harry, I thought this is an extraordinary person, is quite remarkable, because you meet thousands of people in London, and for anybody to kind of break through to your circle, as it were, is quite hard.
It struck me that my first impression was a very true one. She had such an amazing capacity for friendship and interest in other people, and we became very intimate as friends. The fact that she was half my age, less than half my age, made not a jot of difference, and I've never come across that before. I miss her warmth and her sparkle and her friendship. Miss it very, very, very much.
Oh, well, I mean, as a friend, Harinder was, she was forthright in her offers of friendship. She would tell you what she thought friends ought to be telling you. She would give you advice even when you didn't want it. She would tell you what she felt you needed to bear in mind in life. I mean, she was offering a wealth of experience from what people often say to me was a very narrow background. I mean, I still find that a very hard thing to understand, knowing Harinder as I did. Where did she pick up all this experience from of how to deal with a variety of situations? How could she, coming from Malaysia, be giving me such pertinent solutions to English problems that I dealt with in the office? I mean, surely something is wrong here, but she did. And, you know, the points she made, if they weren't sharp and precise, they were certainly thought-provoking.
Harry was a very fun person, so if you were going to meet her, you would smile when you were thinking about meeting her, because there would be lots of joking and mucking about.
She was not at all afraid of pulling my leg.